Hey, happy Friday. Welcome back to another Friday Tech Workshop. I'm Joseph, a senior developer advocate with Appsmith. And if you've been in our Discord or community portal recently, you've probably heard about the new monthly content contest. So every month we have a different topic, and it started out as just templates, but now we're opening it up to all content types. So you don't have to submit the app itself, which we understand if you can't share the data source, but maybe you've got something really cool built and you still want to share it. So you can do that as a video or a written tutorial, blog post, any format that you want to just show others what you've built. And so today we're going to build a developer tool to go with our May contest. The topic for the month is Dev Tools, which is really any kind of utility tool, something small to like convert formats or generate a unique ID, convert between base 64, binary, things like that. Um, these are things that you'll use a lot in other processes as you're building something. So it doesn't have to be an overly complex app with lots of data sources, just a simple tool that you'll use regularly in your development processes for another app. So today I'm going to build a CSV to JSON tool, but to make it a little more interesting, we're not talking about a CSV file that we're going to upload. Um, I'm going to take tabular data from the clipboard from anywhere. So if you're in Google Sheets and you select a range and you paste that into this input, you'll be able to get that output as JSON and then send it to whatever API or database. It would work from Excel or say Airtable or Base Row or anywhere that you can select a range of cells. Now, Appsmith can connect to all those things natively, directly. We have Google Sheets integration and Airtable, and you can use our REST API to pull in data. You could even put a CSV file into the file picker widget, an Excel file. So there's tons of other ways to get to that data and get it in Appsmith. But this utility that I'm making is specific to the clipboard because sometimes you just got a process where you need to copy and paste that data and you don't want to stop and make a data source. It's a one-time thing. So if you just need to be able to grab that from the clipboard as a range of cells and then turn it into JSON, that's what we're building today. But this same library that I'm using, Parse, it's a JavaScript library. It converts actual CSV files. It doesn't have to be from the clipboard. It can also go the other direction, JSON back to CSV. I believe it works with Excel files as well. So tons of different use cases with this particular library. Today, I'm just going to show some basics. We'll set up an input to where you can paste in that range of cells from Google Sheets and then have it on the clipboard as JSON. So let's go ahead and start out. We're going to use the JavaScript library pop-up parse and build our first developer tool. Okay, I'm starting out with a totally empty app here. I'm going to drag in an input, and we'll use this to paste in the CSV. And then I'm going to use another input to display the result, because I want the user to be able to click into here and select it if they want. We can also use a button to set their clip, just to like actually set the clipboard value with a button click, but they might want to select just part of it, like one object once it's been converted from CSV to a JSON object. So I'm using an input to let the user actually be able to click in there and select parts of it like that. And I also want to change both of these to multi-line. And I'm going to turn off the auto height so that I can just set these to a bigger kind of blank canvas there. Okay, and then we'll have a button here for copy. And I'm just going to set these labels and then name the widgets. So I like to use a prefix. Always use 3 letters and then an underscore for whatever type of widget it is, and then something about, its purpose. So this is our input. We'll call it input CSV. And then this is also an input widget, but it is the output JSON. And this helps with the autocomplete. So when we go to reference these widgets in the code editor, if you have that consistent prefix there, then you can type it for any type of widget. You could say, date picker or JSON form, and you don't have to remember the name, but it'll autocomplete and then show you the, whatever matches that prefix. So it's just naming convention I like to use when you end up having multiple widgets that you're referencing in the code. It really helps. So let's get these labels. So this is our input CSV, output JSON. All right, so next I want to be able to use the Papa Parse library to take whatever is in this input here and to convert it into JSON. So head over to the libraries thing on the side here, the little cube, and there's 3 libraries installed by default. And then there's this list of recommended libraries, and Papa Parse is in here. Here it is. So just one click to install these recommended libraries, or you can use this link up here and use the CND. JS delivers the most common one that we use, but you can paste in a link there and install it as well. So you can see that Papa Parse is installed now. There's a link to the docs right here, and it also tells you how to reference it in the code editor. So the full name of the library is here, and then the name that it will be referenced as in the JSON editor, the JavaScript editor, will be just Papa. Okay, and now I'm going to add a new JS object so that we can use the library. We'll get rid of this placeholder code here. And I'm going to call my function convert CSV. And then what we want to do is return Papa, which is the library itself. And then inside of here, there's a couple functions. We want to use parse. And this takes in a string that is a CSV. So I'm going to reference the input widget that we just made to paste in the CSV. So that's my input CSV.text. And let's go ahead and parse it, see what we get. So there's a .data. It's an object, and the data itself is what I want. And then there's errors and metadata stuff. So I want to get to that .data. And it's giving me back an array of arrays, so a 2D array. And at least there's like, each one's a separate string and it's in an array, so it's a little better going from just a string on the clipboard to some structured data, but it is not an array of objects yet. So it's not actually like what you would get from an API. It's still kind of structured like a CSV. And I think it's because we have to give it a config and tell it the delimiter and the header row and things like that. So next, I'm going to go check out the docs for this library. And there is a link right here. So we're doing the CSV to JSON. And this papa.parse, it takes a string and then an optional config object. So we'll check out the options for this config. And we can give it a delimiter, a new line character, and I think this might be what's throwing us off here is we need to tell it what the header is. So I'm just going to copy all of this, and we are going to make a new config object. With these properties. I don't think I need the quote character or the escape character, but we're going to say the header row is true because we do have that header row in our data. I'm not sure if I need these. Let's just try the header at first. So we'll comment those out in case I need it. And all right, we're still getting a 2D array. So maybe the delimiter, and I think it's a tab character. So right there, it's not a regular space. If I do a space, that's smaller. So I'm just going to copy this character from here. I'm pretty sure it's just a tab, but let's put that in here and see what that does. Still a 2D array, but if we type a tab like that. Okay, so I'm not telling it to use this config. I have a config, so we'll put that in here. And I'm going to comment that out again. There it is. That's the one thing it was missing, is the telling it that it has a header. Let me just double check here. If I comment that out, we're passing in an empty config object now. And it's a 2D array. And then I tell it that there is a header row. Okay, cool. So now we've got a array of JSON here. And this lets us display it in a table widget or send it to an API or whatever you want to do with it. So let's check it out in a table. Here's the output. We want to display the JSON version of it. But if this is converting properly, we should also be able to look at it in the table. So there's our function. And cool, there's our data. So it's coming in as a single string. We have selected that range from cells here. And I can go ahead and do the full set now. So if I paste this in here, you can see that it finished parsing the rest of them. And then we'll display that JSON here and make a button to copy it. Now, first to display it, if I just reference that same output that we put into the table, it kind of works. It displays it, but it also gives me an error. So if you look at the error, it says it's a type error because this is an input. It expects text. And so we're trying to display something that's an actual array, a JSON array, and it wants text. So I'm going to use JSON.stringify around all of this. So wrap that in parentheses, and there it is, JSON.stringify. And then you'll see that it is minified now. There's no spaces or line returns, but it's now it's a string and that error is gone. So if you want both, if you want it to look formatted, but actually be a string, the next parameter here for stringify is a replacer function that we do not need. We need the next function. So the third parameter is like how many spaces do you want to use, and we don't want that replacer function, so it's just undefined for the second parameter so that we can get to the third parameter, which we'll put 2 spaces, or we could do 4. So you can see that it's taking however many, whatever number you put here, that's your indent. But it's the third parameter, so you have to use undefined to get over to that third option there. So now it's an actual string. It's not giving us an error, but it still looks formatted. Okay. Now, which one do you want to put on the clipboard? I think depending on where you're pasting it, it might be the same. But we can take the actual output of the function while it's still an array instead of using the string version of it. So here on this copy button, we'll use the on click, and there's an action here to set the clipboard. Copy to clipboard. And then the value that we want to copy is going to come from that same function, JSObject1.convert. So we should be able to paste in any data here in a tabular format and then get it back as JSON. And you can see that it works here in the table, or you could grab it here from the copy button. There's also the table widgets options to download as like Excel and CSV. We're starting from that, so you don't really need that version of it. But if you wanted to send this to an API now too, it's going to be in the right format. It's JSON, and you can maybe make a bulk insert or update to a big set of records. So next thing I want to do is test this out with some other sources here, because the whole point of this is that you're not locked to one data source. If you wanted to pull from the same spreadsheet every time, I would just use our native Google Sheets integration and create that data source, and then you can always pull in data from that sheet. But if you've got a situation where you've got to do this against a bunch of different spreadsheets, maybe you're not even the owner, could be somebody sharing something and part of your business process where you have to grab it from a different sheet each time. If it's a one-time thing, you don't want to go edit the app and create a data source each time. You could just make this tool that will allow you to copy and paste from any table. Now this one doesn't have a header row, so I think I'll have to adjust that config. But this is a pretty common use case where you've got some website, a range of cells that you want to select, and it doesn't have to be a spreadsheet. It's just a table of data from any site. And you want to parse that into a usable format to send to some API or save it back to your database. So I'm going to grab this and we will paste it into our input here. And what do we got here? Yeah, it thinks the first row is the headers. I figured that config was going to throw it off. So it's trying to do something. It's still coming back as JSON, but it's all messed up out of order here. So let's look at the config options. What if I just tell it there is no header row? That's it. Yeah, there's a state and an abbreviation, although it's a 2D array now. It's back to, oh, and it's not JSON again. So maybe I give it a header row. And I want to use the same space. That's not actually a space, that's a tab. So trying to keep that the same. We'll call it code. Let's see. Add the header again. State code. There it is. Cool. So you could add a UI option up here for that. Let's just make this a little easier. We'll do a radio button. Toggle. And actually, I think maybe a slider would be better because this is just on off for the header row. Radio would be better for like, what's the delimiter character? If you wanted to list a few options or even a select widget. So let's do toggle. What am I looking for? Switch. And we will make this the control for whether or not there's a header row. So let's see, we'll call it switch header. And then back to the JS here. I'm just going to reference that. So there's our switch dot is switched on. Okay. So it is on, and this is working here. If I take out the header row again, so it's not working, but I can turn this off, and that's the combo where the format's completely off. Actually, I've got a space at the top there. Okay, so without the header row and with this turned off, actually, that works and they're matched up, but it's not JSON. So for it to be JSON, it has to have a header row. That makes sense now. It doesn't know what to call everything for a header, and I guess it won't just call it column 1 or column 2 for you. So you have to give it the header row for it to convert to JSON. And then it actually has to have it in the data here. And you can see right here that I turned on the header row. It's back to being a JSON array or an array of objects, but all the values are thrown off because it doesn't know those headers. So, okay, I got one other one I want to try out here. We're going to see if we can parse out these time zones and get the label that goes with each one, and then the standard offset here, and then what it is during daylight savings time. And it also gives you a list of all the places it applies to. So I want to copy all of this table here. Let's see. Okay, so we're telling it there's a header row, but it looks like this first label, like the very first field name, is all of the columns together. So the delimiter for the fields, it should be that /t. So we'll go back to the config object on this one. I'm going to uncomment that line. And now we have a time zone and a value, standard, and then what is it during DST? Cool. So we have the time zone and then Atlantic, and then the standard is the -4, and DST is not observed there. Yeah, that parsed everything out right. So it's pretty easy to use. You just have to know those couple of options that tend to change based on what it is you're parsing, or where you copied it from. So you might have to mess with the delimiter and turning on that headers. We could actually make this a input as well. So let's just to finish this off and make it a little more easy to use from the front end here. I'm going to do another input, and we'll say this is a delimiter. And I'm setting that default value to the /t like we're currently using. And then I'll change this name here. Okay, and then we can reference that value right here. And if there's nothing there, I wonder what that's going to do. So it's working now. Actually, it's not taking that value. Okay, so we're referencing our input now, so we can change the delimiter. /t does not seem to be doing it though. Let's see. I think we got to use this tab character from here. So that's what it is. When we pass it in as a string here, and then I need this actual tab character like this. That did it. Now it's parsing it out. But if I do a /t, it thinks all of these are one. So the delimiter is not picking up a /t because it's like a string within a string. Trying to do the /t version and then passing that in as a string isn't working. But if I paste the actual tab character from right there, that works. Okay, so it does work passing in the delimiter here, but you actually need to copy a tab like that rather than saying /t or /n or r for new line. So I think this is as much I want to do for this workshop. We added a couple different inputs here to assist with the function. So this config now, you can just copy any one of these properties here. There's a whole bunch of different options that will let you use this with other data types, other input strings. So just figure out what you need to adjust here on the config, and then papa.parse, whatever that string is, add the config, and it looks like we're able to get it from lots of different sources now. Just want to test this one more time now that we've got the UI options. And that one works out of the box like that. The same tab character is being used there. So you may want to just hard code that one because you kind of have to copy and paste that. You can't type it easily. When you tab, it moves you out of the input, so it doesn't actually capture it. But yeah, that's it for this workshop. So I hope this was helpful. This is a really useful library that has a bunch of other things you could do with it. But the idea for today's, since the monthly contest this month is about developer tools, I wanted to show an example of how you could take an input, process it with some kind of library, and then easily copy that to the clipboard or send it to an API and make your own little utility or dev tool. So thanks again for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you next week.